Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dean Tribble, and I'd like to welcome you to the first Agoric community call. I'm CEO of Agoric. We have many of our team available, and I'll be talking about several things today to introduce you to Agoric. First off, we will be taking questions live in the YouTube channel. Let's see if I can say hello there. And we will be taking them live in the community channel on our Discord. You can see the link to Discord there. Feel free to join that for both chat now and support for our system as you start to build interesting stuff on top of our chain and platform. So I will be talking about several things. The key agenda is I want to introduce what Agoric is doing as a public chain, what Agoric will be doing as an infrastructure that you can build with. Talk somewhat about our timeline, and then discuss the hackathon at the end. So without further ado, I shall jump in, and please feel free to ask questions, and I will see them in various chats here. Ooh, I should bring up Discord. That way I can make sure to see you all in Discord as well. There we go. Okay, and that's off to the side. Oh, I should, let me see if I can't make my video available to you so you can see me wildly gesticulating, because of course, anyone who knows me knows that I wildly gesticulate. All right, well, can't see it here, so I will bring it down. All right, so, first off, an introduction to Agoric. Our key market early, our key target really is about DeFi. And DeFi is currently in the stage where it is exciting, but dangerous, right? So we have systems where there's huge interest, there's a lot of value, there's a lot of assets, but the performance is poor. The gas prices are volatile, not predictable. That eliminates certain kinds of businesses that would be awesome and exciting that you just can't do yet. Finality is slow. Anyone in the Cosmos or Polkadot or other parts of the crypto world understand the value of being sure when something is committed, as opposed to possibly unwinding it somewhat later. But even getting to proof of stake systems won't be enough, because they have some funny economics currently that drive towards centralization of staking on top of exchanges. And all of us in these extended communities, all of us in the Cosmos community know that being able to do staking derivatives, being able to do secondary instruments on top of the assets locked up to secure our chains is crucial. And we've got ideas, we've got directions, we've got stuff starting to build, but most of these chains are very hard currently to extend, very hard to grow. And this is an area where we really need to be able to pivot quickly, grow quickly in order to build a real economy around the staking infrastructure that we deploy. And then finally, of course, the developer experience is, shall we say, terrible in some dimensions, where existing ability to build smart contracts are strewn with security hazards that even security experts step into and lose tens of millions of dollars in minutes with essentially no recourse. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The final thing, and this ties together with the same kind of security attributes of Ethereum and systems that descend from its security model, is that those lead to poor composition. People are really excited about composability finally in the DeFi space, where with Uni, for example, there's a lot of remixing of source code, right? When you produce a new ERC20 token on Ethereum, you do so by copying the code, changing it a little bit, thus invalidating a lot of the security reviews and understanding people have, and then putting it together and deploying this new thing. Well, building smart contracts, building DeFi, building the next gen has gone from being something that can happen in a couple of years down to months or weeks. So looking at Uni, right, they put together the compound governance token together with their market and integrated into their existing contract in weeks. And it was amazing and it was wonderful, but it was a special case, right? Lendit.me did something very similar, where they took the compound contract, but they didn't quite get it right and they lost $25 million, right? So being able to remix source code, being able to really bring together existing source is something that we used to do a lot of in the 80s. It's a great way to get composability if you can't do something better. But man, with upwards of with tens of millions of dollars in losses, the question you got to ask yourself is, do you feel lucky? And is that how you want to run a financial business? So that's not the best way to do composition. So what's Agoric doing, right? Our goal really is our platform, our chain will accelerate the building of DeFi. It's really what we need for the next generation because you know, frankly, it's all just barely getting started. So we are doing a sovereign layer 1 chain built on Tendermint, leveraging the good auspices of all of this, you know, broad Cosmos SDK world. With fast gas economics, with predictable gas economics. I'm not going to go into that here. And in general, I will be talking a lot about our economy in future sessions. Now I'm going to focus on the being able to build with components. It's a platform that lets you build smart contracts using a familiar environment. So a secure version of JavaScript that you can rapidly build contracts in. One of the observations made by our good friend Zucky is, you know, there's a lot of these systems that are leveraging Rust. They're leveraging WASM, which isn't really a programming language, isn't really a solution by itself. You've got to have libraries, you've got to have a language on top of that. So, for example, they're leveraging Rust, which is an awesome language, but it's especially awesome for systems programming. And there are absolutely financial systems out there that are built as systems programming, large scale, deep, complicated, exist over time, maintained back-end trading systems. But most of the transactions, trillions of dollars of transactions every day, happen in systems that are rapidly put together with components in familiar languages like JavaScript. You know, Bloomberg trading terminals, high frequency trading systems, brokerage house APIs, you know, all of the consumer trading applications and banking applications. Those things carry a lot of money and they move very quickly with their customers. They move very quickly with their market demand in a way that they've gotten to the point where you can put things together safely, and that's what we provide. So we have not just a familiar programming language, but a familiar programming model that comes from being able to build OO systems in React or in C# or in these other systems where you get a library, you get components, and you can build on the components of other people. So it's not that every contract is take someone's source code and munch it up. It's, you know, I want to just instantiate an instance of a covered call in order to do some particular action. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And finally, our system is built for DeFi. So it has DeFi integrated. We talked about building not just a chain, and we will roll out a chain, and I'll talk about that, but a crypto economy. And so that's a chain, a place where you can build applications, you can deploy applications in an economy that already has a local stablecoin. It already has existing markets. It already has AMMs and trading liquidity and you know, and auctions that you can incorporate into your applications. And we know those exist. We know those are powerful. And as soon as you get those, that's where now, instead of having to start from scratch, you want to be able to take things that other people have built and put them together. You want to do this not like, you know, copying software and munging it up, but like with NPM, where I can install a package and use it. In our case, and use it safely. Or like React, where I don't write every UI from scratch. I grab, you know, a photo widget from somewhere and a scrolling widget from somewhere and an infinite data access component from somewhere that'll grab from my database. And I put those together to do a much more advanced UI than people could have done 15 years ago when they were building everything from scratch. And so that ability to combine components, we have brought to financial Legos. So I said I was going to mention some of these things. So, but yes, so important. So in short, we get this rapid acceleration of DeFi because you get strong composability and strong programmability for DeFi. So, chain with integrated DeFi, native stablecoin, DEXs, automated market makers, so you can build up from that. It will be able to use bridges, especially IBC, of course, to not just Cosmos zones, but out to Celo and out to Polkadot chains, where all these systems, this interoperability infrastructure that the extended community built, that Agoric helped build with ICF and AIB and others, to provide bridges to other chains, we will be able to leverage so that we can bring over those assets from those other chains to party in this economy. Assets built using our composable, pluggable Legos can be provided over to those other chains, and we end up with finally being able to realize this interchain dream with lightweight components. And we will start with, we reuse those components. I'm going to focus today primarily on what you can build. We have a lot of starting components. We will be building with those components our economy, but those components are things that developers, that you, the extended community, will be able to combine and build on. So, purses and payments, sort of the basics of payments. Fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens are just as easy to produce. So in our hackathon, every project pretty much made their own tokens, and we're able to trade it naturally over IBC. We're able to build on it, leverage it, use any of either native tokens or their tokens inside of these reusable components like atomic swaps and order books and auctions and so forth. And then we combine those. So, I said I would talk about some of these combinations. A couple of weeks ago in the Code With Us event with Cosmos, Arcade Sills gave an example of this, where, covered call is this abstraction where, and I should sneak over and see whether I've got questions because I'm moving. Oh, slides are not showing up. Oh, I'm going to have to go back here and take you on a tour here. I apologize. Let me go. Let me pop backwards here and see what happened. All right. So I was gesticulating wildly, and I hope you got to see that. Okay. All right. Can we see slides now? Okay. We'll start with this reminder. And all right. All right, well, I could rapidly go through this. I will just remind you, there's all these challenges in DeFi. We are building this platform that will address those challenges. And I know what happened here, right? And so we have a wide variety of these reusable components. So as I mentioned, in Code With Us a couple of weeks ago, Kate took a covered call. So covered call is an existing abstraction. It was in some of the very early, yeah, my apologies, Meher. So here you go, right? We roll with the punches and we pivot, right? So covered call was one of the early examples that Markham did in financial cryptography papers, as early as the 90s or the early 2000s. And for how to do smart contracts as interesting composable instruments. What Kate did is we built an OTC desk inspired by Haseeb's unbundling Uniswap, where OTC desk is where instead of having an automated market maker, I can go to a market maker that's off chain and they have whatever strategy they're willing to do and whatever deep pockets they're willing to provide in order to be able to trade assets with me. So I can say, hey, I want a bunch of buy a bunch of atoms. I've got a bunch of Agoric dollars. What price are you going to give me, right? And if it's an AMM, of course, it's a curve. It'll automatically compute it. Here's your trade. Off you go, right? But an automated market maker might have a lot of liquidity that's on a different chain, that's off chain, whatever have you, and they have some decision process for how they will price it. Well, they could come back and promise me a price, but who cares about that? The cool thing is with being able to reuse an existing component, the covered call that Kate showed, or the OTC desk that Kate showed, would give me a quote by instantiating an actual covered call, right? And so a covered call is a separate contract. And indeed, if I flip to it here, in our source code tree is the covered call. This is the entirety of the covered call source code in our source space. You can see over here a wide variety of other available contracts to instantiate and reuse. And now instead of copying this source code and modifying it, thus invalidating all the security reviews that we will have done, all of the battle testing that multiple other applications do on it, instead you can just instantiate this. And so indeed, the OTC desk application just instantiates a covered call and hands it out, where the covered call that I get from Kate's OTC desk is, great, I will be willing to trade you this much atoms for this much Agoric dollars for the next 15 minutes. There's your quote. And it's not just that it's a quote, it's that it's an actual instance of an independent reusable smart contract that was dynamically created by that OTC contract. And that covered call, I don't need to trust the OTC contract in order to believe that I can get my atoms in exchange for the Agoric, the local stablecoin. Instead, I can already have verified long ago the covered call abstraction, verify that this covered call instance is one of those, and now I can just rely on it. And I know, and I know that it will give me the goods that I want if I pay it what it requires. And more than that, that covered call is now also integrated and built into our smart contract infrastructure. So I don't need to just understand I don't need to understand the code in order to know that I will get what I want or get my money back. That's guaranteed by our smart contract infrastructure. And so that's what we're enabling people to build with, is you get to build starting from these reusable components, add your own reusable components for other people, start to accumulate those. And you're doing so in an environment where not only do you have these components to work with, but their actual relationships are much safer, right? When I'm using the covered call, when I'm a client and I've got a covered call, I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to buy that. Here's my money. I don't need to read the code. I don't need to understand the code to be assured that it will either give me what I require, because I said I will give you this money if you give me this underlying asset. The infrastructure itself will provide me that underlying asset before it takes its money, or in an atomic swap, or it'll give me my money back. So I have this thing we call offer safety, and that was what we referred to here as as part of the integral stuff that you get by safe contracts in finance. And we'll go into that a lot more as you start to build things together. But, okay, I see Ambient Light raising her hand. Let me see if I can find these questions here. Oh. All right. Ordering one dean. All right. So post your question there, Ambient. I will keep an eye out for it, and I will continue on. So Agoric timeline. We've done lots of development over the last couple of years. We just released alpha early in September. And the key thing about alpha is it is the framework in which we've got all of these components and we can build them and combine them. Now, behind the scenes, what we have not talked about very much publicly is we also built our crypto economy model. We internally figured out the mechanics of how we will reuse these market institutions, these reusable smart contract components, these financial Legos. How will we will reuse them for staking and for incentives and for internal integration and payment and pricing of commodities and components on our public chain as it goes out. That's what we refer to as our economy model. And so now our phase from alpha to beta is, of course, not just harden our infrastructure, but build those components and combine them together to create a full-on economy. And so those same components that we will use for staking rewards, for being able to resell your positions in various contracts, for being able to get a stable coin for composition between components and so forth. Those same components will be available for you to, yeah, sure, you can take the code and modify it. It's all open source, right? Or you could just instantiate and reuse them directly, so that as you're doing some clever thing where you're going to provide quotes to people, they get a covered call, or they get a call spread, or they get something that one of you dreamed up and built that was reusable by someone else in the community. So we're really excited to see what people can build with this. We will be building our own. We will be interacting with you and other developers to incorporate some of those pieces. And that's this phase, is build and experiment with all the possible ways you can combine things together to produce a nice, active, thriving economy. We will then in Q1, we will roll out our token, public native token on our platform, with an initial economy that has lots of places to grow, places for people to add value and extend, and an environment in which you can deploy, you'll be able to deploy contracts in the future. That will incrementally add specific applications that we're working with, things like financial applications, insurance, that sort of thing. Eventually going towards completely permissionless, completely open environment in which arbitrary third-party applications will be able to be deployed, grow, build on each other, collaborate. We look forward to all of the ways that development can accelerate here. And so that will be, we're building towards mainnet. Next year, we'll be growing out all of that public mainnet with all of these combined pieces. And I see questions. Oh, they can raise their hand or just post a question. So I will start with this first question before I go on here, because I finally see one. Huzzah. So this is from James Foley. What process do you envision for people creating new and unique financial components? So I'm so glad you asked. So let me jump real quick. So in our toolkit, actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump forward a couple of slides, and then I'll come back. So I mentioned we did our alpha. The alpha is a release of the toolkit to be able to build your own smart contracts. So like with React, if you use that, there is an Agoric init of your project. And what it does is it produces a directory tree for your application, for your DApp, that has a contract directory with an initial contract, an API directory with if you're going to deploy a cloud application to be a front-end application bridge to your contract, and it has all the infrastructure and keying and so forth, so that it has some initial access to your contract before you make it available everywhere. And a UI directory with a Vue or React or Svelte or what have you, initial UI that can be delivered by the API cloud app, connect to it, and through it connect to the chain. And so the idea is you can build a new front-end, user-facing, storefront application, user-facing exchange, whatever it is, with a smart contract backend that would deploy in the current environment to our testnet, of course, or to local debugging experience. Obviously, in the future, it would allow you to deploy to the public chain. And so if you look at the Code With Us video from Kate that you can find from our website, and someone can post in the chat here, that Kate goes through much of the development process of building a smart contract and incorporating and reusing some of the existing components, all the way through up to just before deploying that stuff, but shows debugging, using automated testing tools, all that kind of thing. All right. So I will talk about what's happening later this month. So this is, so I talked a little bit about the vision of what Agoric is doing. We are now in our beta phase where we are actively building the components that go into our economy. So our own stablecoin infrastructure, where you pay for execution with the stablecoin instead of some volatile commodity. A local currency, if you will, when you bring apps to your to the local chain in order to participate in the local markets. Later this month, we will be participating in the Hackathon 5, which is the hackathon being driven in the Cosmos Ecosystem Hackathon. It's very exciting. Now, it's focused on production use of existing Cosmos infrastructure. And so that's a really valuable thing that if you have applications of that flavor. We are very much about what's the future of DeFi, what's the next gen for rapid iteration, rapid development, rapid deployment of DeFi. And so we will by then have our infrastructure integrated with the next release of Cosmos SDK, which is the Stargate release. It has fast sync, it has IBC embedded in it. It's the thing that will take the Cosmos interchain vision to the next level. We're building on top of that so that in our environment, when you initially go out, you'll be able to build DeFi and you'll be able to connect it to the rest of the world, right? Economies don't live in a vacuum. Our economy will connect with Peggy to the ETH ecosystem. It'll connect with IBC to the Cosmos and Polkadot, Celo, et cetera, to the extended Cosmos and IBC ecosystem. And so we will, this is a Cosmos-focused hackathon, but it's exciting where you can use our platform to produce applications that are, embedded, as Cosmos zones written in this nice JavaScript connected to the rest of the world. And so we'll be there to mentor and help you knock DeFi out of the park and do some very cool new stuff on top of the Agoric platform. For prizes in Cosmos. So that's the first thing coming up. We just got Santi, our new marketing champion just joined us, who's been doing an awesome job here with our alpha release. You'll start seeing us a lot more, especially at hackathons and that sort of thing, but to help you get oriented, get the tools, start being able to use this stuff. So I mentioned the alpha. Here's the places to go access it. Go to our website, go to the docs, go to our GitHub. There's lots and lots of source code there. There are DApp packages that you can access. The documentation has a guide to the contracts that then have linked to their open source as well. But if you do the Agoric init that this documentation will lead you through, you can also pull them down to start from them. Okay, so our next community call will be a month from now, November 4th. Please follow us on Twitter. And in order to see details, and join our Discord in order to start your own conversation, talk about smart contracts, talk about DeFi, and get started really building your own next generation stuff. And I should add, back James Foley, is being able to then take our components, build your own contract. Please also turn around, and if there's reusable components, make them available to the rest of the community. The reason, the approach that Agoric provides of these components, the reason why React took off exponentially up to millions of developers, the reason why NPM just accelerated, to the moon and beyond, right, is not because people copied each other's software, but because they could grab each other's components and use them. And that's what you get, what you'll be able to do with the Agoric system. That's what we want you guys to be able to start doing, and we're happy to help and make that happen. So now let's see if there's any more questions I missed here. Thank you, James. Yes, it's like React. Well, Sai said it's like React for Solidity. I will say it's like React for DeFi. See, and yes, someone with JavaScript experience. The focus is to make this familiar, not just with JavaScript programming, but JavaScript tooling. So in our environment, as you saw, it's JavaScript. This is standard Visual Studio. When you look at types for things, I don't know if I've got it, if I happen to have it here. You can see that here's the parameters that the offer operation has. Get payouts returns a promise of a record of string to payments, and so there's type system integration, and so it supports the development. It works with standard testing automation tools. So we use Ava for high speed TDD style development. So it's very much designed to be a familiar experience to the millions of JavaScript developers out there. All right, well, we are now at time. I thank you all for your time, and look forward to seeing you online between now and then. And otherwise, we'll see you all in a month. And I will stay here for questions more if there are more questions afterwards. James, the stablecoin, all of the economy pieces we will talk about next time. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you soon.